Welcome back to another episode of the Downsizing Roadmap podcast with your hosts, Jody Roscoe and Heather Fisher. We're talking about all things downsizing, from our own experiences with clients to guest experts. Let's make downsizing easier, one conversation at a time.
Hi, welcome to Downsizing Roadmap podcast. The big three that we're talking about today.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. The ones we all avoid.
The ones with all the stuff.
Yes. The biggest to tackle. We're talking today the garage, the basement, and the attic. Some of us have all three.
Yeah.
Some, you might not have all three, but I think we're going to talk about them in the way they tend to function. And you're going to have similar spaces in your home that match these three categories. Might be a storage shed, might be a storage unit.
Yes, I had both of those written.
Yes. Still guilty of that one, working on it myself. But yeah, we're going to talk about, how those become kind of giant clutter traps filled with big bulky items and things you don't touch on a day-to-day basis, and how we can get through them, tackle them, and finally get to the other side of letting them be a burden.
Yeah. I'm Jody Roscoe.
I'm Heather Fisher.
I think that they're really just giant receptacles of decisions that we haven't made.
Yes.
They're procrastination of the decisions, or thinking I might need that someday, or I don't know what to do with this right now, so I'm going to put it in the storage space, and we then let dust get on it and have it be forgotten, out of sight, out of mind. And then if you continue to do that, you just end up with a space that just is so overwhelming. You're like, I just don't even know how to deal with all of that. And so,
yeah, our favorite Jerry Seinfeld video.
Oh, it's so funny.
I can't not hear it in my head now that, garage sounds a lot like garbage. Right. And I think that, it starts out maybe ever, maybe not, but a little bit organized and not too much. And then it's the place where you just put the things you don't know where they go.
Yeah. Yeah. So some of it may be an organizational problem. And some of it may be like you just literally don't have the space to keep things. But if that's the case, then you have too many things for where you're living. And so if you can't keep it inside the house, number one, is it out there because you don't really need it anymore, but you aren't letting it go? Or is it outside the house because you don't have enough storage inside the house, and there's some things in the storage that's inside the house that needs to go away so that you can bring it in? But Jerry Seinfeld says, once it goes out, it never comes back in.
Right.
And so once it goes to the basement storage or the attic storage or the garage or the storage unit or whatever, it rarely does come back in the house. And it's because once we put things out of our sight, we live without them. We genuinely probably don't need them. I mean, the only things that I can think of that are in my storage that I really do use is like seasonal decor, holiday, whatever, that it's there because I don't have my Christmas things out in June. And so it's okay for it to be there because I will be using it. But if you aren't putting all your holiday things out, think on that. But otherwise, it's not a part of your life. It's not becoming part of your memories. It's not a part of your legacy. So if you want it to be that, it needs to be out.
Yeah. And I think organization is key. Don't organize first.
Yeah. Don't go buy bins.
Don't buy bins. Don't organize first. Don't find, different ways to stack the bins you have in a neater fashion. But once you've gone through and reduced that, I think it is easier to maintain when you have some sense of sections or walls and like things together or things up off the ground when possible, so that you're defining space for things. All three of these things are just big square footage wise. And so it's not like one drawer where you quickly realize when it's overstuffed and maybe you need to get rid of a few things. It's a big open space, and it gets to the point of overstuffed a long way down the road because it's just so much stuff, and then it's overwhelming.
Right. And it holds the highest concentration of all of our stuff in our house because it's packed in there. that's why it feels overwhelming. That's why these are like, ugh, the garage, or, whatever, because it holds the most stuff per square foot, of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, they also feel impossible, I think, because you kind of fill them up from the back forward.
Yeah.
And you don't, I don't know, growing up and then in the house I was in for a long time, you kind of get to the bottom of the steps and you finally got whatever it was to the bottom of the basement steps and you just set it down.
Yeah.
You don't go find that area where you're going to keep it and you think, I'll organize that later, or I'll put that up on the shelf later.
Yeah.
And it becomes, because it's not a path you're walking through all the time. I think attics that way too. You don't really want to go further than that opening. So you put the first thing up there and then the next thing pushes that back and pushes it back, and you're not really organizing it.
Yeah. So, I mean, feeling impossible, there's so many reasons. One is it ends up being so many different kinds of things, right? There's paperwork down there. There's your kids' toys down there. There's all kinds of, there's holiday decor, there's paint, there's,
There's so many things of random shapes too. It's not things that easily pack in a box.
Correct.
In a lot of cases. It's appliances and sports equipment and exercise equipment and all kinds of things that are heavy and bulky and random shapes, and so it doesn't organize neatly and nicely.
Right. So, and it holds things, your identity things, right? Like, you put it down there because it meant something to you, but you don't want it in your main room, but so that's a message actually to yourself. So think on that. It means something to you, but not enough to you that you want to look at it all the time.
Hard truths, folks.
Yep, we're going to spit out the hard truths. And so that means there's probably some guilt attached to it, or something attached to it where you feel like you shouldn't get rid of it, not because you love it so much that you have it out.
That often happens with hobby and activity items too. You maybe move them to the basement or the back corner of a garage or the attic because you're not quite doing it at the same level, or you've gotten new equipment and haven't gotten rid of the old, and you're keeping that. Well, maybe I'll need that. And then time passes and all of those questions are answered. Like, no, you're not interested in that hobby anymore, but you didn't make that original decision and never circled back to make that final decision and move it out of the house.
Yeah, I think the layer of dust on it, the amount of dust probably tells you when it was last used and whether you're actually, using it. So you have to kind of be honest with yourself. This episode's let's be honest with ourselves. So, why are we keeping that stuff? So I think you get a lot of decision fatigue in these areas because everything is so different and everything needs different thought processes, right? What you're doing with your paperwork is not the same as what you're doing with your holiday decorations and your kids, toys and your pictures and your whatever else is all down there. And so every box or area that you kind of uncover, if it's your basement or in your garage, if it's sports equipment, all the things, like, it's all different, right? There's tools, there's sports equipment, there's things for the car, there's things that you don't use and you just stuck out there.
Yeah. Well, and there's a layer of the invisibility trap that some of these areas you don't go to daily, and so it doesn't become an urgent need to make your daily life better. It's a distant, I should clean out the garage, or I know there's things in the attic that I should have someone take away, but it doesn't have that urgency because you're not seeing it or walking through it every day. It's just kind of pushed to the corners or filling up a space that you just shut the door and
for basements and attics and storage areas, that's so true. For your garage, though, if you're trying to park in there and you're squeezing your car in between all the stuff, you are feeling the weight of that. Even if you don't realize it, you are feeling the weight of that daily. And if you can't even get into the garage, that's a whole nother hardship, especially depending on where you are in the country. If it's cold and it's snowing or icy this morning, there was ice on the windshield. Like if your car was in the garage, you wouldn't have that. If your car is outside the garage, you are having that. And so those are choices that you're making, sometimes even safety choices, honestly, of, not parking it in the garage and using that as a storage space. And I will say, we might say this later again too, but it's not a good place to store things. It's wet. It's
not temperature controlled.
Yeah, it's not temperature controlled. There's often little vermin, like little mice and whatever that get in it. So if you have put things out there to keep them, it's not a good place to keep them in good condition.
Well, yeah, and back to that safety, if you've just been accumulating things by piling on top of other things, those stacks of boxes might not be on proper shelves, or things too heavy, too high. All of that can just add up to not a great situation that's hard to handle later on.
Right. So start with a plan. How are we gonna tackle it, right? Because we all know it feels heavy and we want to shut the door and walk away.
Yeah.
So it would be better to not tackle it as one giant project. I mean, if you need to and your timing, you're like, okay, I have to do it, then I would probably get a bunch of people over to help you do it so it doesn't feel like that. But if it's something that you can tackle and you have a little bit more time, I would break it into little micro zones. So if that's the garage, it's the sports stuff and we're only doing sports stuff. Then we're only going to do tools. Then we're only going to do, holiday bins or whatever else is out there. And just try to keep the things that you're working on that day similar things, because that helps with your decision fatigue, and it also can show you, like if it's scattered all over the garage, you can take it all to the middle of, I'm going to grab only sports things out of all this stuff, right? That's all I have to look for. I don't have to try to filter through all of these different things. And I'm going to take all the sports things and I'm going to put them in the middle of the, garage, and then we're going to decide what to do with them. And you'll see, oh, look, I have 4 basketballs that are flat.
They're always flat. Every ball in the garage is always flat.
But you might not even know you had 4 because you couldn't find the one and you bought another one, or somebody got one for their birthday, or, whatever it is. So when you take all of the same like things and you put them together, then you can make better choices. And it's easier to make the choices than if you're just going around and picking one thing and then something totally different category and then something totally different category. Your brain is like, I can't do this.
Yeah, it's back to that this or that. We've talked about plenty of times when you have, 5 or 6 of something, you can pick the best 2 and get rid of the rest. But if you're looking at each one on its own merit at different times, you're making a decision. You might end up keeping all 5 because you've already even forgotten that you just said yes to the other one.
Right.
So you really need to gather it together and pick the best of the best.
Yeah. Yeah. And so same in the basement or whatever storage area you have, attic for that. But you might have memory boxes. You might have bins of the kids' old clothes or toys. You might have appliances that you don't use as often or never that you think you're going to use. Ice cream maker.
I think if you're finding a lot of the things in these spaces are just household overflow, that if you had more room inside, they would logically be stored inside, then that's an indication. Maybe, there's different amounts of storage at every house. Sometimes the garage or somewhere else is the best storage spot. But if it's just because you already have, 2 toasters upstairs and you've come across a third and it's just overflow, let's start getting rid of that as well.
Yeah. And some of it might be extra paper towels or extra toilet paper or whatever. And so that's okay. Like, figure out what the amount is that you need to feel safe and comfortable after COVID. And, but
don't ask my husband, my comfort levels. I need lots, Jody.
But also put it all in the same place so you know how much you actually do have, right?
Yeah.
Because we can start shoving things like there's toilet paper in the basement and there's some toilet paper in the, closet, linen closet, and then there's some under the sink, and like it's everywhere. So also, again, putting like things together. So use like a 2-hour win approach, because This, you can do 15 minutes like we say on some of the other stuff, but you're probably not going to get very far because there's such a density of stuff. So if you could have a 2-hour feeling motivated, get your coffee, whatever that is, 2-hour approach, and choose a zone that can be pretty much, completed in one focused time frame.
I would layer on that to have a plan for what's happening at the end of that 2 hours to get rid of the stuff, because it will tend to be bigger and bulkier things. Do you have adult kids nearby that you could schedule, hey, could you come over Saturday afternoon and help me get this to the donation center or wherever it needs to go? Or could you put a donation pickup on the calendar and do your session, right before that? However that needs to work, because if you're pulling things to the center of your garage and sorting through it, you don't want to then not be able to park, and then you have to, it starts... You get frustrated that you want to park in the garage and you start spreading it back to those corners, and your work goes for naught. Yeah.
Garage sales are really not my favorite, but we did do them when the kids were little and taught them how to, give change and sell their things and all the things. But Mark always was like, none of that's coming back in the house. Like, he would pack it. Like when the garage sale was over, he was like, I'm here with the boxes. It's going straight to donation, because you'll also start to second guess your choices and pick stuff back out.
And honestly, at that point, you didn't want it and nobody else wanted it. But you're second guessing both of those decisions and thinking maybe it should come back.
So trust yourself. It's good. It's got to go. I love that. Make sure you have that it's going. And it's either, in the garbage, or it's donation, drop off or pick up.
Yeah.
Make sure that's happening.
Yeah, but make that part of your plan.
And also, if let's say you're doing a rack of shelves, maybe you just need some sorting of it, because again, you might not want to make decisions on the bunch of different things that are in the shelves. So don't make it be, start putting your things, sorting them, but you don't have to, how am I saying this? You don't have to do that category, all the different categories in a day. So put them still start going into the like places together, but don't get distracted by that, right? Yeah. If we're doing sports and we're doing a wall, but there's gardening stuff on that wall too, pick a spot in the garage, put all the gardening stuff. That doesn't mean every gardening thing's in there today, but starting that pile, and then don't get distracted by the sports stuff that you're doing today.
Yeah, and work your way around the garage. You'll see that progress start to go. Okay, 2 walls are done. I just have one more. However that looks, start seeing that progress as you do each category.
Yeah. So clarify your goal for the space. What do you want it to look like at the end, right? Are the kids gone and we don't even need a sports area anymore? Yeah. I mean, are we still gardening? Do we need those tools? Do we not need those? Do you need a workspace? Do you need better storage? Do you actually need to keep your holiday stuff out in the garage because that's the only place for it, and we need some better shelves and bins for it? It's okay once you've actually, we don't want you to buy all the bins before you start putting everything in a bin. But once you've determined, that is what I need, and I need it to be organized in this space, then that's okay.
I think these spaces too are spaces that don't naturally have furniture or cabinets or things like that. So you can really make it easier once you've condensed it down by getting things up off the floor. And, any of the big box stores will, sell things you can have attached to the wall to have rakes and brooms and all of that up off the floor. And then once that happens, it's much easier to notice when things start creeping again. You have a spot for everything, and then if there's not a spot, you don't want to clutter up the corners and the floor again.
Right. So while you're doing this, you might get hit with some emotional bombs.
Yeah.
Right? Because we put a lot of stuff that we feel attached to, but we don't really want to make decisions on in these storage areas. And so that might be your kids' artwork or old furniture, or souvenirs that represent different times in your life. Yeah. Someday guilt projects. I started that project woodworking, you were going to strip your dresser, you were going to, whatever that is, half-finished crafts, exercise equipment that you were going to use and you don't. But then you feel terrible that you haven't done what you promised yourself you were going to do, so then you just keep it. So again, we're going to be brutally honest with ourselves in these. Like, if you have not used it, you're probably not going to unless you have some really true plan to create a habit around that thing, and then it shouldn't be in the storage. It should be somewhere where you're going to use it. So,
yeah, and I think it's okay to enjoy the discovery of a box of something random that's a nostalgia item, and take that time and look and, tell the story if there's someone else there with you, but then it can still go.
Yeah. And if it's like, let's say it's your photos, I would just put those all in one place, and then maybe you have a family day where you have dinner and everybody looks through the photos, or you don't have to. You can get derailed easily in your 2 hours by finding a photo box and sitting down and looking through the photo box and, not necessarily getting through the things. And it's still getting through them, but are you doing that in a purposeful way, or are you just kind of reminiscing and then you're putting them all back and you still have the exact same situation that you had 2 hours ago? So
exactly.
So I think that we just have to realize, are these things, again, about the life that you're building? Are they part of your legacy? Are they just things that are down there because you didn't make a decision on them at some point in your life and that time has passed and you don't need them anymore? Are they down there because they were your mom's and now you don't know what to do with them? You don't love them. You feel guilty.
I think you can get some clarity for yourself before you even start by trying to think through what is in the basement, what is in the attic, and if you're discovering things that you didn't even know were there, and then you're feeling a sudden need to keep them, being honest with yourself of, I didn't even know I owned this anymore before I started,
right,
can give some clarity around that.
Because remember that I own it and I'm responsible for it. It's going to kick in when you see it.
Yeah.
And so knowing that you haven't looked at it for, we've had clients who've moved like 10 years ago, and when they go to move again, they're like, oh, those boxes we never even opened from our move from before. That is many people. That is not like one person. That is many people that have 3 or 4 boxes that they never did open from when they moved. And they probably don't need that stuff. So, you can look at it just to make sure it's not, $100, $500 in there or something. But I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's just things that you don't need.
And if you're brave enough, you really don't need to look.
Yeah.
You really don't.
Yeah, you probably have an idea of what it is, and you just haven't used it.
Yeah.
You don't need it.
Yeah. If there was something really valuable, you would have been
looking for it.
Mm-hmm. So
remembering it between the 10 years that you did.
Yeah, it might be better to go with that maybe box theory.
Yes.
If I haven't needed it, I can let it go.
Right. So garage, it's function first, right? Garages are for parking your car. That is what garages are for. I know. Crazy thought process. They're for parking your car and having it be safe and having you be safe and, away from the weather and, not icy and chipping it all off when you're trying to go to work and all the things, or, go out to do something. And then they're also for, maybe garden tools, things that if you have a shed, maybe that's what you have, where you have that. But if you don't, your mower, if you mow, those kind of things. That's pretty much all that needs to be in the garage. I mean, if you have a little work area there of tools, that can be in the garage.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what's in our garage.
Sports equipment if you have kids.
I've always parked in the I've always, I've had clutter in different areas, but I've always been able to park. I think we have not a lot, garden rakes and shovels and things, and
bikes.
Yep, bikes. And, there's a lot of space usually up.
Yeah.
So if you can get that stuff up out of the way, that's great.
Yeah, vertical storage is good. Hooks, pegs, shelves.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get to a place where you're like, I ride my bike, and be honest, if you don't ride your bike, Maybe it's time for the bike to go. But if you do ride your bike, there's some great things that you can get at your local big box store, that will hold the tire of the bike so you can put it up, or pull the bike up. Like there's some great storage things for that. Our golf clubs, I think, were out there, although Ryan, I think, keeps them now in his room because he doesn't want them to be cold because, again, it's not the best place to store things if you want to keep them nice.
Yeah. Some cabinets, if you've got we have fertilizer and different plant food and that kind of stuff out there. But if you can organize that on shelves and things together in a cabinet, they sell freestanding little cabinets you can buy just to kind of keep it feeling neat and tidy when you pull in at the end of each day. It's like coming home to your bed being made. Like you're not coming into chaos, you're coming into everything in its place.
Which you don't think bothers you, but when you get it cleaned, you will realize it did bother you and it was heavy and it irritated you as you walked in, and it causes a little chaos in your brain every time.
Yeah.
Basements or storage areas usually hold sentimental stuff. Things that you've been given that you or that you've outgrown, but you weren't ready to let go of them. And so be ready to just spend some extra time in there, reminiscing through whatever. And sometimes you can look at those things and reminisce and let them go. And sometimes you're like, nope, this is really part of my past and, whatever. And give yourself, 1 or 2 bins for your memory, whatever. Give yourself a limit, because every time we do give the limit, then it's easier for you to make decisions about it, right?
Yeah.
This or that, because it's not all fitting in that box. So what is it that I can keep? That really, it helps you determine what's really important.
Yeah, you're not making a yes or no on each item on its own. You're ranking what is what are the things that fit into this parameter I gave myself, whether that's pre-defining what categories you want to honor as part of your legacy, or if it's, 1 bin per kid of their school memories, if it's, 4 bins for holidays and, no more than that. You're giving yourself a boundary to fit inside, and it makes those decisions easier because it doesn't mean you don't love or didn't love the things you give away. It just means you loved something else more.
Right. It just helps you figure out what you love the most.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then if you have old paperwork, you have expired pantry items, you have, outdated appliances, like you got the new toaster and you put the old toaster in the basement instead of giving it away right away, whatever. All of that stuff, easy decisions to let that stuff go. And Easter's on its way, right? Spring is coming. So I'm switching out my holiday. So just like we did a Christmas one. And if you want to go listen to that one about what to do with your holiday stuff, same for any of the holiday or even spring, fall. If you are somebody who changes out your decor a little bit, make sure that you're emptying out those bins entirely, and whatever's still left in the bottom of those bins is something you don't want to put out, then it's time to let that go.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the other thing to be aware of is that oftentimes we put collections down there, and then time goes by, and when you put it down there, it might have had more value or more perceived value, and then markets change, times change, what had some value may not. So if you're just keeping something because you always have, it's a collection of fill in the blank, check on that value. There's estate sale people that could help tell you whether it's something sellable or, something worth preserving for your family because of the monetary value. But don't fool yourself. Some of those things have just changed and they're not as valuable as they once were.
Yeah, the antiques market, unfortunately, has gone down. I think there's a slight resurgence of people who don't want things to be wasted or wasteful, and they're starting to kind of, thrift a little bit. But the amount of things that we have, it's not it's not researched in a way that's to equal to the amount of things that we have. So, and really it doesn't matter. Like if you end up letting it go somewhere, the person who wants it will find it, and it's okay that it isn't you. You don't need to keep it and stored it and, usher it through any further if all you're doing is leaving it in a box in a storage area.
Yeah, exactly. So talking about the attics, I've never been an attic storage person myself.
Well, I told you my attic story.
Yes.
I can tell you briefly again. So we were moving, and I thought we were done, and then I realized there was some stuff up in the attic, and I was so annoyed because, I was mad at myself for having shoved stuff up there, and I'm bringing stuff down, why is this? I don't want this. Why is it up here? I don't want it. And when you are on a deadline like that, it actually does make you see it more clearly too. I only have this hour and this is the stuff I'm dealing with, meaning I don't want it, right? But also it's hot up in the attic. And so things, again, not a good place to store photos, or candles will melt. It's not a good place. Stuffed animals, electronics, it's not a safe place to store that stuff. And again, if you are carrying it upstairs to the attic, it's probably not something you need, honestly. And if it's paperwork that you think you need to keep for a certain amount of time, put that paperwork in a box, label the year that you can get rid of it if it's taxes or something like that, and then that year you can just take it and get it shredded, and you don't even have to open it or look at it. So just be a little bit organized about it. If you have to keep, we have to keep stuff for our business for 7 years, for our taxes and stuff. So there's some stuff you do have to keep. But when I cleaned up my mom's garage, there was tax returns from 1972, and I see how that happens because you keep it when you need to keep it, but then you never go back and look at it, and so then it just kind of accumulates and accumulates. So but those papers in the garage were totally useless. They were damp, and it wasn't not good. So
when we cleaned out the attic at the house we just moved from, the condition of things that we pulled down, even if they would have been wanted at a time, it just was not stored properly and just deteriorated so much.
Yeah, stuffed animals, all of that stuff. Your kids can't get rid of them yet because, it's just that time. But they feel like they don't want them in the room, but they don't want them. But those, little mice love those. And, if it's humid and then it's cold and it's not like it's leaking in there, but it's just not a good environment for that kind of stuff. So mold can grow and all of that. So
it's not designed to be the same as the interior rooms of your house. So it's just different.
Yeah. So when you're disposing of things or donating things, some of it you do have to dispose of responsibly, right? So some of the chemicals and the paint and if it's oil paint and some of those things you have to be careful with. So and electronics, some of the electronics. Yeah. So you can.
Most cities or counties, somewhere local to you, will have some kind of a hazardous waste drop-off. It looks different places. Some might be a free drop-off. Some might be a limited, you can only bring 5 paint cans at a time. There'll be limitations, but cities don't want all of that in the water system either. So there are places and ways to dispose of that. So that's just Googling hazardous, in your county or city, hazardous waste drop off or hazardous materials drop off. And usually it's a pretty simple process. Drive up in your car and unload it, or someone unloads it for you, and it's taken care of, and it's much better for the environment than just throwing it in your regular trash.
Yeah. Household stuff, the holiday stuff, bikes, all that stuff, the donation people love that. So that kind of stuff can easily be donated. Think about if a person doesn't have a home or, needs to fit up their house, anything, dishes, sheets, furniture, upholstered furniture, if it has any kind of stains or, you can't do that. And beds can be problematic. And if you have bedding that is a little bit frayed, you can send that to your Humane Society or any kind of a pet place, and they give that. And stuffed animals too, because some of the donation places don't want to take stuffed animals, but the pet places will take
animal
them.
shelters will use all of that bedding and towels and things
Yeah.
for the cages and for
Toys.
toys and comfy places for those pets to sleep.
Yeah. So if you're feeling a little shaky or, not as strong as you used to be careful. Don't get on the ladder. Get some help. There are definitely people, state sale people, if you have stuff to sell, or junk people that can clean out, areas, organizers. There's definitely people that can help, businesses that can help you get that stuff done. And if you don't have family in the area, or your family can't help you with that,
And then
just be careful.
once you're done with that process, just keeping these spaces clutter-free, especially if you're doing this early, which we always advise getting started on your house early. You want to keep it that way, so when you are ready to move in the future, those big areas are already tackled. So 1 in, 1 out rule always.
New toaster, old toaster, donate.
Yes, you got it. Seasonal, a sweep of those areas. I know in the winter our garage gets, just more cluttered because it's cold outside. We don't want to be out there organizing it. But then spring comes and you're kind of getting out the yard tools more, and you're tucking the snow shovels away. So just seasonally kind of reevaluate, sweep out the leaves and the dust and dirt, and make it clean and fresh.
Yeah. Label your bins with dates, especially like when I was talking about the paperwork, if it's ready to let that go, so they just don't outlive their purpose. And then, put it into your annual maintenance routine. Don't wait until it gets really bad before, you do it. So this was like me as a kid growing up with my room, right?
Me too. For sure.
Let it get really bad, and then it would take me all day long to,
You know why it took us all day long? Because we had too much stuff.
Right.
I was a collector as a kid. So.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. So don't do that. That makes you it just feels, exhausting. So if you just pick it a little bit at a time, just kind of sweep around it and look at things that you might not need, or like I said, 1 in, 1 out, you can keep it that way.
Yeah. So, once you've cleaned those, you're just going to have that relief. You'll not be mentally managing all of those spaces at all times.
Yeah, and especially your garage. It really is a heavier thing than you think when you pull in there and you just kind of see all that stuff, and you're like, what am I doing with all that stuff? You don't think the thought, like you kind of stop looking at it, but it still passes through your brain without like that thought, because when it's clean, it just feels totally different. Like I feel like it's like, when you go to the beach all day and and then you take a shower and it just like feels so amazing, like you just kind of rinse off that. Well, that's what it feels like when the whole thing is clean, right?
Yeah, and for many of our listeners, we know the stats from our class on how many people can't park their cars in the garage. So if you get to that point and you've done all this and now you can park, like what an amazing feeling for that square footage you've gained to get your car inside, maybe for the first time in a long time. Yeah. That's amazing.
Well, and that will help you with some of the harder things, right? You get the ball rolling, and once you get that ball rolling, you kind of feel that joy about it, and then you can start working on things that might be a little bit harder for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I know when we tackled our attic, we knew, we were moving, within the calendar year, and we tackled it months before we actually put our house on the market and sold and moved. And just knowing it was done, with the amount of work it took right at that finish line of selling the house and moving, if we would have not done some of those big spaces ahead of time, I mean, what a relief that we already had some of that done. So definitely. Yeah,
I ended up moving a bunch of stuff because I ran out of time. I got it like probably 80% done, and then I had 20% that I just moved. So don't do that. That was a bad idea. It was bad. Yeah. So, get started on it. So this week, pick a micro zone, schedule it, an hour and a half or 2 hours to do it. If you You can get a family member or neighbor to help you pick up heavy things if you need to, and then go celebrate with them. Go get ice cream or go get dinner or whatever afterwards, and pat yourself on the back that you started, and just get it going.
Always celebrate those wins. And if there's anything that we can help you with, our website, downsizingroadmap.com, and on the website you can get our free downsizing guide, and reach out to us if there's any topics or rooms or spaces you want us to cover. We would love to help you.
Yep. Check out the guide, downsizingroadmap.com/guide.
Yes.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks for joining us on the Downsizing Roadmap podcast. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who might need a little downsizing inspiration. Have questions or ideas for future episodes? Reach out to us on our website, www.downsizingroadmap.com. Until next time, let's keep simplifying and moving forward.